Good afternoon. I'll call us to order and ask the clerk to introduce the board members to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board members for this afternoon are our chairman, Mr. Gar Beacom, and board members Benita Estes, Brad Robson, Pat Steer, Marcia Reed, and myself, Garrity Stanley, the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board Clerk. Does anyone have any objections to the board members this afternoon?
I have a question, Madam, if I may. I am a little concerned that there's a sitting councillor on the appeal board today, primarily because of two issues. We have a subdivision that has yet to be dealt with by council, and they had a special report brought to them, I think not last meeting, but the meeting before, regarding permitting for filming, and they went into camera and they came out with a motion. And I just feel like there may be discussion on filming and videoing and permitting that I'm not aware of, that the sitting councillor may be aware of, as there is no bylaw in this regard. So it's my job to work with council, and I understand that, but at the same time, I don't want to be responsible for precluding Councillor Estes from any future decisions either. So if the county feels that that's acceptable, I'm okay with it, but I just need to raise it as a concern.
As we normally do, the board will recess to discuss that, and then we'll come back to you with our comments. Thank you. I'm going to call on the member to speak to address your concerns.
Thank you to the chair. I have no prior knowledge to this case and I feel that I am unbiased.
Thank you. And I just want to make sure that we haven't precluded the counselor from voting on matters associated with this application in future. And if you're comfortable, that's fine. Fine. Thank you.
I just mentioned to you, you know, the sensitivity of these or the lack of sensitivity. You might want to have to pull the microphone a little closer to you. Thanks.
So with that, I turn it back to the chair. And he might turn it back to me.
So with that, I'm going to outline our procedures for the hearing. First, I'll ask the clerk to introduce the appeal into the minutes. Then we will have presentation from the municipal representative and everybody else that's involved. We're going to hear from the applicants, the appellants, those in support or opposed to, or in that order, support and then opposed to the appeal. Anybody has a chance to make a presentation. It doesn't matter whether your presentation is oral or written, just as long as we get to know everything we need to know. I do emphasize that even if information has been provided elsewhere in the county, it has to be reintroduced into this hearing for us to use it in making our decision. And I emphasize that point. So with that, I would ask the clerk to introduce the appeal into the minutes. Sometimes I forget that and the clerk has to tell me that I forgot it. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The appeal today is against the approval of development permit 25D15. Thank you. I stand corrected. The appeal is against the refusal of development permit 25D154 for vehicle testing on portion north 23rd, 17, 28 west of the 4th meridian. The appellant is Stephen Eitzkovich, and the grounds for his appeal were submitted to and reviewed by the board prior to the hearing. Please note, this appeal hearing is being live streamed and will be available for viewing on the county's website upon completion of the hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Ms. Kotler.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The appeal before you today is against the automatic refusal of development permit 25D154. The application is requesting consideration for vehicle testing and 2 annual events on the subject parcel. The subject property is an existing 158.57 acre agricultural district parcel located adjacent to and south of 658 Avenue East, east of 168th Street East, 5 kilometers east of Highway 2, and 6 kilometers east of the hamlet of Cayley. The application proposes vehicle testing to be defined by the proposed definition. Vehicle testing strictly involves performance testing and handling tests that are conducted on tracks or specialized courses to assess steering response, braking, cornering, and overall vehicle dynamics. Example, performance, handling, braking. This includes high-performance vehicles available to the general public. This does not include drag racing, funny cars, or any modified or enhanced race cars, or cars which may produce noise that exceeds standards which are not permitted. The application proposes vehicle testing and video recording. This is proposed to occur on the plus or minus 1.5 kilometer asphalt strip on the lands, with only the first quarter mile of the track to be utilized for side-by-side comparisons. Vehicle testing events will take place a maximum of 12 days per year, occurring Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m., All vehicles will be associated with Hyatt Auto Sales Limited. The application also proposes 2 events per year. One event is a customer VIP event proposed once a year for a maximum of 30 persons, held one day on a weekend between May 1st and September 30th. The other event is a Hyatt Auto Sales staff event proposed once a year for a maximum of 60 persons, held one day on a weekend between May 1st and September 30th. Vehicle testing is not listed as a use, permitted or discretionary under the Agricultural Land Use District. Therefore, the applicant went before council to request a site-specific amendment to allow for this use on the subject parcel. To supply the board with background on this application, on June 4th, 2025, a public hearing was held. Council granted first reading to Bylaw 40/2025 to allow for this use as a discretionary use subject to a number of conditions. On September 10th, the application went before council for second and third reading. Council determined to postpone the decision until more information became available. On November 12th, 2025, council passed a motion that Bylaw 40/25 receive no further readings. The applicant has requested that this development permit application continue to be processed. Under Section 12.1.4 and 12.1.5 of the Land Use Bylaw, within the Agricultural Land Use District, the listed permitted and discretionary uses do not include vehicle testing. Therefore, the development permit application is considered an automatic refusal. All additional information has been provided and included within the agenda package for the board's consideration. This concludes my presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board.
Thank you. Board members have any questions? Thank you. Next on my list of people here is Mr. Itzovich. Are you speaking or is he your agent?
I will be speaking on his behalf, Mr.
Thank you.
Beacom.
Yep.
I'm just going to put my presentation up. Just give me a moment, please, sir. Screen. And start at this top. Screen. There we go. Should be full screen now. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With this presentation, I'm going to describe the application, its location and context, as well as some details. I'm then going to move to a summary of our public engagement and then the grounds for our appeal, and our response, which fall under 4 categories. One is the category of procedural fairness. One is suitability of the land for the proposed use. Another is failure to base the decision on evidence and failure to provide adequate reasons. Tests and legislation and policy overview, and then a conclusion. The site, as Ms. Kotler has explained to you, it's 160 acres, and this quarter section was boundary adjusted in the east-west direction in order to allow for the airstrip. So it was a conscious move to reallocate how these quarters set up, and they were redivided north-south, and there's a northern 160 along 268. The property is approximately 158 acres in size, and all of that, 150 of it, is actively farmed and would continue to be. No agricultural land is impacted by this development permit. The subject site designation is A, Ag District, and it's surrounded by large agricultural parcels of land with a few residential areas throughout. I want to take the board through this entire process, which is why I was a little concerned about a councillor sitting. I just don't want to be in the position where I've excluded that councillor, so that was the question. It's nothing personal. The site plan and application that we started with was a land use designation for our first parcel out. And we made it as small as possible at 6 acres around the house. That application had a fulsome public hearing wherein it was discussed that we use the airstrip for vehicle testing and filming. However, there is no mechanism in the land use bylaw for that use. One, there's no vehicle testing definition in the land use bylaw at the time, and there's absolutely no permit requirements for filming across Foothills County. So Heartland, The Revenant, The Last of Us, they've all filmed with no permits. Billy the Kid down at Augustana, no permits. So there's no permit requirement. I know the county is talking about that right now. The balance outside of that first parcel out will remain as agriculture. And that pavement airstrip is there. It's not like we can take it out. It's a high quality airstrip that was done for the Flying J ranch. That landowner perished in a plane crash, and we have purchased this in order to run standard vehicles. These are the vehicles that the general public can buy on side-by-side comparisons. We also have a long-standing lease agreement in place with a farmer who continues to crop and utilize the land agriculturally outside of the airstrip. We had our first fulsome public hearing at first reading, which was October 9th, 2024. We had no one attend that public hearing. There were no objections at that time. This was the public hearing for the first parcel out, and the conditions were that we execute and comply with the municipal development agreement, which we have executed and complied with. The council acknowledged that there's a barn on the first parcel out, is non-compliant, and that the final redesignation fee be paid, and we submit an executed subdivision application. All of that was done, and the file was not progressed by administration. The file went back for second and third reading, and council said, no, we actually want a site-specific amendment and development permit in place for this vehicle testing before we give second reading. But I think it's important to note that those were not conditions of the land use approval. That was an added condition, not a part of the public hearing. And we just complied. We provided a development permit application, and we submitted a subdivision application for the first parcel out. On October 31st, 2024, our subdivision application was deemed complete, and as of today has not circulated or seen a decision on it. So more than a year later. The second application we made, because council wouldn't give us second on the land use, was the site-specific amendment to add a defined term to the land use bylaw for this particular piece of property, which we called vehicle testing. And it was only to occur on the private airstrip portion of the subject site. The vehicle testing definition was created by us. We brought it forward to the administration for their review and vetting, and they didn't change it. And this definition was critical to us in terms of ensuring that council was given the proper assurances that we wouldn't have high test fuel cars there, we wouldn't have drag races there, we wouldn't have public drag racing there, we wouldn't do the things that we're being accused of. So the vehicle testing definition, I know that Stacy read it to you, but I think the important parts are what we excluded and included. So it only includes high performance vehicles available to the general public. So G-Wagons, SRTs, higher horsepower, 500, 700 horsepower vehicles, not 1,000 horsepower vehicles, not what we said does not include drag racing funny cars or any modified or enhanced race cars or cars which may produce noise that exceeds standards which are not consistent. So all of these cars have the standard muffler, the standard emissions testing, they are street legal. It's none of this stuff that can typically happen around these uses. The balance of this land where the airstrip will remain agricultural. The only zoning change we asked for was that first parcel out to CR. So we submitted the site-specific amendment, and we had a second public hearing on June 4th, 2025. Again, a fulsome hearing and a fulsome discussion on vehicle testing and filming. Alone, that was the only purpose of the public hearing. And we received first reading. Councillor Seward made a motion. We got first reading, and no further readings were to be provided until we prepared a noise mitigation plan and completed sound testing, which we did. Final amendment application fee paid, and the development permit application fee paid. It was all paid. The development permit was submitted and considered complete January 29th, 2025. The development permit fee and the site-specific amendment fee were processed, and you've got the receipts in your evidence package. We also, at that time, undertook a community engagement to the circulation referral area. There were actually bigger than the circulation referral area. There's 3 people who live in the circulation referral area, and there's 6 in the mile. So we did the mile, we did 6. And the engagement letter was sent by Hyatt Auto. So it was on their letterhead, and the engagement letter is in your evidence package from us as well. And it told the residents what we were doing, who to contact, the limits within which we operate as a result of the development permit application we made. And at the hearing for the site-specific amendment, we had no objections. And Mr. Colros actually spoke in favor of our application. He's here again today. We got no phone calls for our engagement efforts, and nobody complained or sent us an email, nothing. We had no feedback from our engagement opportunity. Now, the operational details around the use I've summarized here, and these are found in our development permit submission. And these are the belts and braces under which this operation can take place, and they are important to review. So vehicle testing will use the asphalt strip for conducting the vehicle testing and video recording of those tests. There would be 1 customer event per year, and that's a VIP event for folks who are purchasing vehicles, and the Hyatt Auto sales staff once per year. The dates and hours of operations, so the vehicle testing can occur a maximum of 12 times per year on that track, and will only occur between Monday and Friday between the hours of 9 and 6. The customer VIP event, which is one of the events Ms. Kotler spoke of, would occur once a year, either on a Saturday or Sunday between May 1st and September 30th. And the Hyatt Auto Sales event, which is the second event Ms. Kotler spoke about, would occur once per year, either on Saturday or Sunday between May 1st and September 30th. We would have a maximum of 30 attendees to the customer VIP event and a maximum of 60 for the sales staff event. The types of vehicles will be associated with Hyatt Auto Sales Limited and considered luxury vehicles from the luxury vehicle market, and they will not include any funny cars, race cars, or other modified vehicles that may exceed noise restrictions. All vehicles will use 658th Avenue North or 184th Street East to park and get to the application or the site, and all vehicles will be parked on the paved airstrip, and no vehicle will be parked on the adjacent public roads. Water and wastewater for those events, they'd be brought in on site from the customer VIP event and the staff event. So we would bring the porta potties and bottled water for those events. It's important to reiterate, because it is repeated in some of the letters, that we would not be doing off-road vehicle tracks. There is no drifting. There is no off-course use. There is no motorsport complex. There is no public use. There's no runway Sunday. It's not public. And there's been no evidence to the board suggesting that we're doing otherwise. I'm just going to skip ahead of this. The purpose of our appeal today is to add the definition to as a permitted use, as it was applied for, to this district at this location. That adds the definition and allows for the 2 uses, as Ms. Kotler had stated. Now, we are asking additionally that the board may want to consider approving a subdivision application that we submitted a year and a half ago, as the county has delayed processing that application for no reason, and it was not contingent on the site-specific amendment or development permit. Mr. Chairman, I do have a video of the deliberations on the site-specific amendment. However, I also included those in evidence. And so if they've been viewed as part of the evidence, I won't show it here. Could you just let me know if the members viewed the videos?
I think that we should exclude that. presentation.
Thank you. It's in our evidence if you'd like to watch it. It's interesting because the discussion revolves around legal enforcement and legal investigations for which our client was absolved of any wrongdoing. The Reeve had made a comment that he wanted a more fulsome public hearing because we weren't telling the truth or the truth hadn't come out. Well, this is what's going on, sir, and I don't know what he's talking about in terms of what the truth is or is not. Now, there has been Netflix out there filming on that airstrip. There is no permit requirement for filming. Had there been a permit requirement for filming, we would have got one. But there isn't. You can just film as you like and basically close roads as you like if you're filming in Foothills County. I've been turned away off public roads by CBC. Like they can't do that, but they do, and they don't have a permit, and it doesn't matter. And that's how the county's operating today. So to investigate us for filming when there's no permit requirement is one thing. The other thing they were investigating was speeding. There was an individual going about 150 kilometers an hour down that road almost daily. And it was determined that it was a feedlot employee. It was not anyone associated with the Hyatt lands. So, we aren't the offenders here. And it's frustrating to be called one. We've had 2 public hearings on this matter. Both have been detailed. Both talked about the operational aspects of this use. The vehicle testing was discussed at length at both the land use first parcel out hearing and specifically the site-specific amendment hearing, where we added that use and got first reading. Filming of the vehicles was discussed, but there is no permit requirement currently. Following first reading of the land use application, administration advised us to make a site-specific amendment and development permit application because there was no way to permit this because we're just filming. So they said, well, let's have them add a definition of vehicle testing and we'll permit them that way. And we said, fine. So we added a vehicle testing definition. We made a site-specific and development permit application. Again, walking through the front door, asking for permission to do this use. We were not told of any neighbor complaints or issues between first and second reading. And we were requested to apply for this definition in order that a development permit could be issued. And we complied. And the request to rehear or not give second reading so it can be reheard is unjustified. And particularly in light of the fact that there was no reasons for refusal offered. So the core issues of this development appeal include procedural fairness, suitability, failure to provide a reasonable decision based on evidence, and failure to provide adequate reasons for refusal. Now, let's talk about procedural fairness. So we were granted first reading on October 9th, 2024 to our land use, and we made it clear to council that we were vehicle testing on that airstrip. Council didn't impose any requirements of vehicle testing after that public hearing. Then through conversation with administration, we were directed to submit a site-specific amendment that defined vehicle testing for this site, and we agreed to it, and significant information was provided regarding the operations, the uses, and more importantly, the intensity of that use, or lack thereof in this case. On January 27th, 2025, that site-specific amendment was submitted, and on June 4th, 2025, Council granted first reading to that site-specific amendment after a public hearing where no one came except for Mr. Colrus, who supported us. This we had asked for as a permitted use, and the staff report reflects that the indication from administration that it was acceptable as a permitted use on this location. All of the belts and braces that I went through with you were discussed again. The number of days that were coming out, 12, the hours, and the 2 events. On September 10th, Council postponed giving second and third reading to the land use bylaw to seek legal advice on speeding and filming in the area. The county had requested that that legal decision be brought forward prior to second reading. The county conducted their investigation and found that the speeding was not associated with this property, and the film production activities were within the permitted uses for the county's bylaw, as there's no requirement to get a permit for filming. We then had the election in October of 2025, and 4 councillors were not able to vote on second and third reading for this site-specific amendment to add vehicle testing definition. And they refused to give it further readings and gave us no reasons at all. The application has been unnecessarily delayed for reasons not related to the application, which is filming and speed production. We have been absolved of that by investigation. Then a decision on provision of second reading was rendered that's contrary to first, and not based on any evidence or materials submitted to council. So when you get your minutes and your decision on first, which is in your evidence package, the letter says, council felt that there was no undue net negative impact or no effect on the use, value, and enjoyment of neighboring properties, first reading. Then on November 12th, we came back for consideration of second and third, and the Reeve indicated he was not going to give those readings. That was his motion, and he wanted the application reheard, which goes against the Municipal Government Act, and I'll get to that. So this application's been unnecessarily delayed. This was not deliberated or discussed transparently or fairly. I didn't hear the Chief Administrative Officer or the Director of Planning discuss with council that the reasons for the delay at second reading in order to have an investigation were fully satisfied, which is why it was back in front of them. None of that was said. Council determined that we'd go back, send him back. You can see that he said that in the hearing. The evidence demonstrating that the use is suitable and the issues of speeding are not related to the parcel users. It was a feedlot employee, and that a noise study was undertaken and submitted to the county as part of the noise mitigation plan that was asked for, and there's no provision for permits required in the county for filming. So again, we're really at a loss to understand how this kind of died. A procedural fairness argument I would make under the Municipal Government Act is under section 216.5.1. 216.5.1 says, unless an act or another enactment specifies otherwise, a council may hold only one public hearing on each proposed bylaw or resolution, or any part thereof considers residential developments or developments within residential and non-residential developments under Part 17. This is a non-residential development under Part 17. They put me through a development permit process. Part 17 applies. Now, a council may hold only one hearing on a proposed bylaw. So what they decided to do was send me back. We need to have another hearing. Well, that goes against this section of the land use bylaw, because the bylaw that they'd have to hear the second time would be exactly the same as the one they didn't give second reading to. How do you do it any other way? It would be a site-specific amendment to allow vehicle testing on this legal description. For that reason, they cannot hear this twice. This rule was amended in the MGA in around 2020 as part of the Cut Red Tape Reduction Act. It applies generally to public hearings under the Act, including those required for planning and development matters. This limitation prevents multiple hearings on the same bylaw and proposal, promoting efficiency while still allowing input. The amendment essentially restricted the ability of the municipality to hold multiple public hearings on the same bylaw in specific planning and development contexts, ensuring the process follows legislative timelines without undue delays. I'm going to suggest that what we have experienced has been a number of delays, and to rehear this matter is patently forbidden by the Municipal Government Act. So this is why I'm sitting here today. There was no reason stated as to why the application did not receive second reading other than what was reflected in the video, which is why I wanted you to see it. There was an election, and I don't know, maybe people were talking to their councillors during the campaigns, but there was nothing given to us as to, in any way, shape, or form as explanation as to why this did not proceed. The that is procedurally unfair, in our opinion, because first reading was given minutes that said no undue interference, no negative interference on use, value, enjoyment of adjacent properties. That was written down in that letter for first reading. And then basically flipped when they didn't give a second. So I don't understand. Suitability of the proposed use. So on June 4th, 2025, the meeting minutes reflected that council was of the opinion that the proposed site-specific amendment and subsequent use of the subject lands would not detrimentally affect the nature of the area and will not unduly interfere with the neighboring land uses or affect the use, value, and enjoyment of neighboring properties. That's what we were told. So we then went to meet our conditions. On June 26th, we completed sound testing at the site, which demonstrated that the noise generated by vehicles on the site remains at or below 60 decibels along 658th Avenue and 168th Street. These sound tests were conducted on 3 vehicles with 3 different engines, the Mercedes-AMG C-Class, the Mercedes CLE 53, and the GT 55, so the G-Wagon. All readings were taken along 658th and 168th, and the decibel readings were taken with a digital sound level reader. The recorded sounds were less than or equivalent to 60 decibels. For context, with an individual talks, that recorder picked up their voice at 71. So you can stand 100 feet from these cars and talk. They are regular vehicles you can buy off a lot. We provided that evidence to the county, and that evidence is also in your package. This evidence supported the county's earlier conclusion that the proposed vehicle testing would not be detrimental to the character of the area, nor will it materially interfere with the neighboring land uses or enjoyment of nearby properties. Now, suitability of the site for the proposed use. This screen thing is right in my way. I'm just trying to move it. There we go. We've had 2 public hearings, proper notice, proper advertisement. These uses have been discussed in detail. There was no objections raised at either hearing. 1 person spoke in favor of the application. This use aligns with the dark skies policy and the community standards bylaw. And if the board members are familiar with the community standards bylaw, it also legislates noise. And we are compliant with the community standards bylaw. In addition to that, we put some real belts and braces around our development permit application with like we're only allowed there once a month, 12 times a year, only 30 people at one event, only 60 at one, and that's it. Like we were very sure to have the proper belts and braces here. And this basically informs how the county would enforce a bad actor on the site. The proposed use has less of an impact than the former airstrip did. We have no planes, we have no jet fuel, we have no overhead nuisance, we have no associated disturbances such as smoke. We don't have emergency landings, which were happening. We don't have skydivers coming by. We don't have any of that anymore, which is far less disruptive on the community. The objections provided in writing contain misstatements and describe aspects of this use and its intensity that are not in evidence. So like a public raceway Sunday or a public drag strips or a motorsport complex and an off-road track, none of that's in evidence. None of that is happening, and none of that is permitted by our development permit. It reminded me of Gendron, which I hear quite frequently. Gendron is a case, Gendron versus the City of Calgary, where Justice Hunt said that raising an issue is not the same as having evidence to present. And evidence is critical in appeal hearings. Stating that the use, value, and enjoyment test is not met is not sufficient. It needs to be substantiating evidence. The board has underscored this in many of their decisions. There is no evidence being presented here today outside of ours, which absolves us of, which our evidence absolves us of many of the accusations being made against us presently. Oh, and we're frozen. Click back on your presentation. Thank you, Stacey. And also in terms of its suitability, the land remains agricultural and is used agriculturally. The airstrip is there, it's constructed, it's almost a mile long, and the quarter section was readjusted to accommodate it. There is no discontinuation or reduction in the agricultural use of this quarter by introducing this use to this existing airstrip. It in no way takes agricultural land out of production. As I'd mentioned, it's far less intense than the past use involving aircraft, emergency landings, and flight layovers. One of the other concerns we had was failure to base a decision on evidence presented. The council granted no further readings on November 12th. They provided, however, no rationale in their deliberations or discussion, despite the fact that the conditions of first as set by council were met. This included that noise testing and the speed investigation. Furthermore, staff report suggested that council consider granting second reading, and again, not detrimental to the nature of the area, will not unduly interfere neighboring land uses or materially. This isn't my words, this is what the staff report said. The conditions of first reading for the SSA were met. Administration requested council to grant second and third. No, the notice of first reading affirmed that council was of the opinion that the proposed site-specific amendment and subject use of the lands would not be detrimental. It's in writing, it's in your package. At council's decision not to grant further readings is not based on any evidence or information provided related to this application. So what didn't happen was the chief administrative officer, or the director of planning, or it was the deputy director at the time, didn't give council the information that these investigations have occurred and it is not us. I didn't hear that. And all I heard was this needs to be reheard. We have to rehear this. This isn't the truth. And it is the truth. I don't understand what was said behind closed doors that made this thing turn 180 degrees. It wasn't shared with us as to why. So the fact there was a definitive recommendation to provide second and statements from administration that there was no undue effect or material interference with adjacent lands, and then not to get additional readings and have your application die and have to bring it back, it doesn't make sense. With the reasons, all we received in writing was the bylaw received no readings carried. The reason for refusal is inadequate, given that reasons for approval were given at first reading of the site-specific amendment, which demonstrated the suitability, and this was confirmed by administration in their notice and in the adoption of the minutes. Council's reason for refusal doesn't recognize or address that the proponent provided the information to satisfy the conditions of first reading and that the proponent demonstrated the proposed vehicle testing was suitable. We looked into planning law and practice on this, and there is no requirement for a council to give reason. There's no statutory requirement for a council to give a reason when making a decision. However, failure to do so has been noticed by the courts. When you don't provide reason for a decision, it basically, when you do provide a reason, it promotes better decision making. So they didn't provide a reason, and so I can't tell you what it is. And Ms. Kotler can't tell you what it is because they just didn't give it more readings. There's no explanation. They afford the parties the ability to assess the question of appeal or just judicial review. So what would I do? I would go to a court and say I have no reasons. And what would they say? Well, you have to go back. That would be the remedy. That facilitates the court's exercise of jurisdiction, its administration of supervisory jurisdiction, and questions on law. A question on law is like Gendron. Was there sufficient evidence prepared and submitted to the county and to the council that led to this decision? I'm going to say no. They weren't given the evidence. The effect of inadequate reasons makes your job difficult and my job difficult. There isn't enough rationale here for you to set aside a decision. And so I've had to bring all of this back again and discuss with you our perspective on this application, what we were told to do, and our experience. This leaves us with no reason for reapplying and rehearing or anything. Like I just, what was the purpose of not granting second? It's very rare that that happens in this county. I can't remember a time where I'd had something go for first and it didn't get second. It's extremely rare. Now I'm going to talk about the tests in the Municipal Government Act. And this is the legislation that the board will have to wrestle with, and it's 687 3D. So if you look at 687, it says it must comply with the applicable land use policies. These are the land use policies of the province, and those put preeminence on coal and gravel, and they don't really have a bearing on this application. It has to be compliant with an applicable statutory plan. In this case, the only applicable statutory plan is the Municipal Development Plan. And we comply with the Municipal Development Plan because we are maintaining and promoting and retaining agriculture, where agriculture has been going on forever. We must comply with the purpose statement of the agricultural district. We do. This 158 acre quarter section, 150 acres of it is agriculture. So we comply with the use in the district. We are asking that vehicle testing be added, and that was at the direction of administration, so they could at least permit something here. As I'd mentioned, no filming permit. We gave them the vehicle testing definition so that we could wrap a permit around it. We have to, when the board makes their decision, they can confirm the issue of the development permit, even though the proposed development doesn't comply with the land use bylaw. If, in your opinion, the proposed development would not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood, materially interfere or affect the use, enjoyment, of value of neighboring properties, and the proposed development confirms with the use prescribed for that land or building in the land use bylaw. So I believe we check all those boxes. We have provided evidence with regard to the noise and the sound that these vehicles make. We have lived within the requirements of the permit, and I think council was upset because some filming happened, but you can't get a permit for it. So they're discussing that presently. According to 683, the board has a power to confirm, revoke, or vary board decisions and substitute its own decision. When considering variances to the land use bylaw, the board is required to assess that the variance would unduly interfere with the neighboring amenity. And in this case, the variance would be adding vehicle testing as a permitted use, and we're suggesting it has no negative impact on the use, value, or enjoyment of neighboring properties. It's actually less intense than the use that was there previously. No residents, zero, made arguments against this at a public hearing. We received no letters at either public hearing. There are no undue effects. There was no concerns raised at first reading. Again, in consideration of the application, council is of the opinion the proposed site-specific amendment and subsequent use of lands would not be detrimental to the nature of the area, will not unduly interfere with neighboring land uses or materially interfere or affect the use, enjoyment, and value of neighboring properties. It seems to me that there has been some manufactured evidence or something taken into consideration that we don't know about that resulted in this dying on the order paper, and it's not fair to procedurally in the process. I don't think I'll go over these slides. I've talked for a long time. This is just compliance with the MDP, compliance with the land use bylaw. But I will say in conclusion, we complied and followed every direction that was intended, and we intended to make it very clear what was happening here. We wanted to get the permit for the sake of the community and our client to clearly outline the operations, activities, and restrictions. The two public hearings occurred on this site, one for the land use application and one for the site-specific amendment to add vehicle testing as a permitted use, which are now stalled. Given the procedural fairness argument we've made and the nature of the de novo hearing process, we are requesting the SDAB consider issuing conditions of approval of our subdivision as well, as it's been sitting for a year and a half. The land use and subdivision have been unnecessarily delayed now, and we are concerned about them given this recent direction from council. Should the board approve the development permit, council will need to acknowledge that decision. Before I conclude, Mazen, I would like to make a few comments and just introduce yourself if you would, Mazen.
Hello, I'm Mazen Abelhosen. I'm General Manager at Mercedes-Benz Downtown Calgary. I work with Hyatt Auto Sales, and I've actually been tasked with managing the property since acquiring it, and was a big part of getting to know the property beforehand. Over the past few years, we've had the pleasure of meeting many of our neighbors in the Foothills County. When we first acquired the AJ Flying Ranch, we were very excited and received a great deal of attention from multiple media outlets. During an interview with CTV News in November of 2024, the reporter asked whether we had any future plans for the property. At the time, we spoke about some hopes and ideas that were fueled by newlywed excitement and unexpected media attention. I would like to take this opportunity to clearly confirm to county residents, as I have consistently done in conversations with many of the neighbors, that none of those statements will ever be acted upon. We have absolutely no ambitions to further develop the property beyond its current use. Aside from the land on which the paved runway exists, the property is strictly used for farming and is subject to a long-standing lease with a local farmer, which reinforces this commitment. We apologize for the statements made during that interview, which are occasionally requoted in other articles, and we formally and unequivocally retract them again here today at this hearing. Aside from one VIP event and one staff event per year, attendance at the property is very limited and often in the single digits. All attendees are required to respect the law, posted speed limits, and the rules of the road at all times. We make it clear that if we witness any laws being broken, we will report those incidences ourselves to the RCMP. We have, in fact, observed significant traffic on 658th Avenue that has not always been respectful of these laws. I've spoken to the High River RCMP myself on multiple occasions and have offered to assist by reporting any dangerous driving within their jurisdiction. I have also informed them that if any visitor to our property acts irresponsibly or unlawfully, we will provide a witness statement along with that individual's identifying information. Since acquiring the property, we no longer permit air traffic to land or take off from the runway, as we believe that this would be unnecessarily disruptive to the neighbors. We have been approached repeatedly by multiple flight schools seeking to rent the runway for touch and go training or to hangar aircraft, as well as by several skydiving operations who wish to conduct business on the property. While we could easily accommodate these requests and generate revenue, we have declined all such offers. We do not wish to introduce constant air traffic noise or increased activity that could disturb the community. Our sole intention is to continue using the property as we have over the past several years and to preserve its agricultural use, an industry that we deeply respect and support. Our company motto is from the community and for the community since 1993. Since acquiring the AJ Flying Ranch, that commitment has not changed and now extends beyond Calgary to include all of the neighbors in the Foothills County. We consider ourselves to be a part of this community and seek only to add value, not disruption. We commit to being respectful, responsible neighbors and to supporting the community whenever we can. Thank you for your time. We have the utmost respect for Foothills County and its residents. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be a part of this community.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just also add that as a corporation, they have a high community engagement priority, and they do send a guy every week out to the property to clean it, mow it, sweep it, pick the ditch. It's done weekly. So it's a nice property. It's well taken care of. And I just take umbrage to some of the comments in the letters of concern. And that concludes our presentation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to questions, just to give the board a brief break, we'll do a little recess and be right back. Thanks for allowing the break. I'll go to questions now to Development Officer and to I guess the agent for the appellant. Then we'll proceed on for the other people we have. But just, we've covered a lot of information here, so I'm sure there will be questions. So with that, the board, Mr. Robson. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Through the chair to the development officer. My question is for you is we're only, for clarification, we're only engaged today in addressing the appeal of the development permit 25D154. Is that correct?
That is correct. The matter before the board today is regarding the automatic refusal of the development permit.
Thank you. Then through the chair to the appellant's agent. We, as you know, have had a pre-read of this packet of information that's been provided, and I have two questions for you. Number one, you've identified a citation of section 2165.1, and I have gone through all the documentation that I have, the King's printers as well. I cannot find a reference, and I'm thinking perhaps it was just misquoted or misnumbered, but that's section 216, section 5.1. I can't find a reference to it that relates to the information you are providing. And I was wondering, can you provide that for us? Because you've mentioned it in the package, you've mentioned it in your presentation, and I can't clearly identify it or its meaning, and it's not in any of the documentation that I have access to.
Just make sure, I thought we put it in the evidence.
Because the only one that I found was an amendment in 2017, which is municipalities to establish a public participation policy. I don't have any other citing or relevance to what you've commented on today.
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to go to the internet.
I understand.
Yeah, so when I pulled this for the purpose of my presentation, I pulled it right out of the Municipal Government Act. And I went to Canley to ensure that I got the latest, greatest version. Previous version of the Municipal Government Act that did what you said it does, where that section was revised in 2020 under the Cut the Red Tape Act.
So at the moment, do you have any information on hand to that effect?
I can't. Just gonna find it, see if we can find it in the evidence here. This is 687. No. We thought we submitted it with 687. And
In my 2024, right there, and I don't have my mic, so don't worry about it.
My fellow board member does not have it in the 2024 MGA as well.
it's there. They just talked about it at the last Brownlee session at the Alberta Institute of Planners Conference.
I can
And,
appreciate all of that. However, I'm asking for very specific identification and clarification of that note. Thank you.
But I can't go on the website and pull the MGA off.
The clerk is
Doesn't have it.
flagging me, so I'll go to her.
If I may, Mr. Chair, through the chair to Mr. Robson, what section was that again? Just so I can double check?
216.5.
In the application for the appeal for refusal, as well as in the presentation we were provided today, and in another two areas within the package, section 216, subsection 5.1 in the MGA doesn't exist as identified by the
Let me
definition
just
that
double
the
check here, one
agent
moment.
provided.
I pulled it right off. What date is this one? 2000. 216. No, it was added. This is added 2015. This is outdated.
That's the same.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I recommend that if the appellant's agent doesn't have that information handy, nor did the appellants, then perhaps we can just leave that question aside.
Mr. Lebowski is looking for it on the Canley website. I picked it out of the legislation myself, put it on my slide.
Well, the last point I'd like to make is what you're referring it to and claiming it against what the council has been you refer to it. It's not the same definition as I think you intended. So perhaps it was misstated.
Sure. So this,
So I'll move to my second question then.
okay.
In your package as well, through the chair to the agent, there was a letter notification from the Transportation and Economic Corridors Notice, which is from the Minister of Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors. Has the Ministry of Transportation and Economic Corridors under the Honorable Devin Dreschen been contacted in reference to this application specific to the development permits use you're applying for?
Vehicle testing? Yes.
In our package, it doesn't show that that information was provided to the minister, and I wanted to ensure that it was indeed the application was made, that vehicle testing and referencing this development permit within Foothills County. All we have is the response.
So what we did was we applied for a permit. This is on page 39 of 44 of the county's evidence package.
Mm-hmm.
And it says description of development vehicle testing. And then the bottom it says, in reviewing the referral circulation, the proposed development does not fall within the permit area of the provincial highway as outlined in the Highways Development and Protection Act regulation. Therefore, a roadside development permit application is not required. So we made the ask and they said, we don't need to give you a permit for it.
All right, thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I may interject one more time, Mr. Chair. I do have the appropriate document. I will just clarify that with Agent Bunder.
Yeah, it's 5-1, 216-5-1, yes. Thank you, Claire. Ready?
Further questions? Mr. Steer?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through the chair to Ms. Blunder and to the applicant. This is quite a convoluted set of circumstances, so you may have to bear with me here in getting to where I'm hoping to go. And as was just discussed here a moment ago, I think it was agreed by the development officer that the matter before us today is a development permit. I recognize and I heard you on the other matters that you've discussed and presented. I wish that I had a copy of your slides or copy of or a hard copy of all those panels you had, because you had some very detailed information there on what has happened. And I do understand all of that.
I'll leave it with Miss Garrity.
Thank you. So to go on though, and to get to my usual concerns, we were talking earlier about the section of the act that we deal with quite a bit here on the appeal boards. It's 687, as you talked about, and you mentioned section 3 and what the appeal board has in terms of, I'll call it for a lack of other terms, variance power. And you mentioned particularly 687 3D, as I just said, where the board can, at some point in time, 687 D2, the proposed development conforms with the use prescribed for that land or building in the land use bylaw. So that is another requirement. Because therefore, after hearing what I've heard, that the land has not been or pardon me, the amendment to the land use has not been allowed, or the specific use that you required before when you made the application, then this board would not have the power to grant a variance. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. You can actually grant the variance. You have every power in which to do that.
Do you have a copy of the act in front of you there?
Yeah. 687.3.
3D sub 2,
687.3.
sub 2.
I'm just going to put the whole legislation in front of me. It was just here. Isn't this fun? This is always a determination by the courts, regardless.
687, just for
Please.
everyone while we're looking here, is to do with the hearing procedures and the decisions.
Okay. So 687 3D says that the board, I'm sorry, 687 3D says that you as an appeal board may make a order or decision or confirm the issue of a development permit, even though the proposed development does not comply with the land use bylaw, if in the opinion, the proposed development would not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood, materially interfere with the effect or use of enjoyment of the land, the proposed development conforms with the use prescribed for that district land or building in the bylaws. So your question is, how do you conform to the proposed,
No.
the purpose statement?
No, given that legislation that's stated there, I'll reread. It just basically says that the board may make a variance with the following conditions. The proposed development would not unduly interfere, materially interfere,
Mhm.
and the proposed development conforms with the prescribed use for that land or building.
Mhm.
Without the approval of the land use amendment that you sought, how can we conform?
You can still suggest that the use is appropriate even without the site-specific amendment. Because what we did was the agriculture general is a permitted use and we conform with agriculture general. It talks about tillage, are utilizing this in conjunction with other structures. Vehicle testing aligns with the purpose statement of the agricultural district because we don't negatively impact the property and we don't negatively impact the agricultural use. That strip has been there since the 80s. There was no requirement when the land use bylaw changed to permit it. It's there. There are other private airstrips in the county as well. This one has been used publicly. It was identified on the Can West bubble that you can land there. The purpose statement of the district, we can't vary. We can vary standards. We can vary setbacks. We can vary heights. This is a use that we tried to add. This was done because they wanted to give us a permit and couldn't figure out how because they had no way of permitting filming. And we said, we'll just permit the vehicle testing then, and we'll add the definition. And here we are.
Right, but my point is, and I may not have been clear enough, I apologize.
No, I understand, but
Yeah.
it says you can.
You were not
Sure.
successful in getting the amendment to the land use bylaw that you were requiring.
I feel like I was successful and then there was a change on council and something happened.
Yeah, but currently in this regard, at this moment in time, those specific land uses are not in the permitted list or the discretionary list of land uses under the ag section, correct?
It's not on the permitted or discretionary uses list under any district in the land use bylaw. That's the issue.
Correct. And I guess I'm just saying that, please help me, would like to help everyone here. If we haven't got satisfied 3D section 2, where the proposed land use is going to be complied with, then we have no way to allow it. I'm happy to hear the arguments and successful arguments, please.
Okay. I'll start from the beginning. The lands are subject to a development permit application, which was designed under the agricultural district. We had to do a site-specific amendment to that district to add the use in order to get the permit. We made the permit application, we provided all the information, we gave them a definition because they wanted to permit it and had no idea how. And it was our suggestion that we do this, add the definition. The purpose statement of a district can't be varied. And it says to promote a wide range of agricultural land uses that encourage growth, diversification, development of the agricultural industry while having regard for agricultural value, rural character, in the area consistent with the policies outlined in the MDP. We are consistent with the MDP. We are predominantly in agricultural use on this quarter section. It's just the strip that isn't. Agricultural general is defined as a means of system of tillage, animal husbandry, which involves methods used on large areas for raising crops or rearing of livestock, either separately or in conjunction with another in unified operation, includes buildings, other structures, agricultural operations. This vehicle testing aligns with that purpose statement because we don't negatively affect the agricultural use. We're continuing the agricultural use. We aren't going to rezone this to commercial. That would open a whole new can of worms and people would lose it. So
Agreed.
how else do you do it? You make a development permit application. As Ms. Kotler says, the development permit application was refused because this wasn't added. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that we can make an application for any use, even if it's not defined, provided that it does not have undue negative effect on the neighborhood, and it doesn't.
Yes. And I guess where I was going must be with this discussion is the key word between those two items in that section is and. The proposed development would not unduly interfere. I know the board can do that. We do that once in a while. It might not materially interfere, but then it says, and the proposed development has to conform. That's where I'm hung up. So I'll just sign off for the
You like
moment.
it complies, and the word is complies, not conform.
Thank you.
Mr. Robson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the appellant's agent, referencing back to our original communication regarding the section 216, the document that we've been provided, you have a copy as well, and so does your appellants. In your package, in my pre-reads, you're referring to 216 as a, my words, lack of fairness in the review of the application, when I still believe that perhaps there's a misinterpretation of what that MGA states for 216.1.5 or 216.5.1. You're referring to one hearing per provisions for public hearings, bylaw amendments, et cetera, et cetera. It's my opinion that that does not pertain, as the act is defined in the handout that we've been given, is correctly referenced in your appeal for this matter. My objective is to completely understand your point of view, your appellant's point of view, the case being made before us, and I want to ensure that I have as much clarity as possible. So in order for, in my opinion, that you've provided reference to that section often, unfairness, an amendment can be made, et cetera, I think that yes, it exists in the act, I agree. How you're referencing it and what you're claiming with that is not relevant. It is really, to my understanding, as I've read through here, is literally just saying that there must be a public participation in the process. It's definitely underway.
No, I think you're confused respectfully. If I may, I'm just going to share that slide again where I talked about that section of the act. Okay. So the information in front of you should read 216.51. Unless this act or another enactment specifies otherwise, a council may hold only one public hearing on each proposed bylaw or resolution or any part thereof that considers residential developments or developments with residential and non-residential developments under Part 17. So I read the Cut the Red Tape Reduction Act, and I read the reasons and rationale for including this to ensure that I could pin my argument on it. And it said that it applies generally to public hearings under the Act, including those required for planning and development matters. The limitation prevents multiple public hearings or multiple hearings on the same bylaw proposal, promoting efficiency while still allowing input. The amendment essentially restricted the ability of the municipality to hold multiple public hearings for the same bylaw in specific planning and development contexts, ensuring the process follows legislative timelines without undue delays. Now, what I'm saying, Mr. Robson, is in order for this to be achieved, again, because they didn't give a second reading on the site-specific amendment,
okay.
okay? The exact same hearing has to happen. The exact same process has to happen. The exact same bylaw would be read into the record. That goes against the MGA, sir.
All right. Now I understand where the disconnect is coming from. This hearing today is around a development permit. We are not here to make a decision or enter any information or make a decision on any hearings or what council's decisions have been made up to this particular point. Referencing the development permit that was automatically refused is the hearing that we're addressing today. So I'll leave that point there. The second,
process which we got here is also considered, however.
thank you. The second point I'd like to make in support of my fellow board member Steer is we as a board under the SDAB, our limitations, if you will, are to make a decision on policy that exists today, to make decisions on land use policy, regulations, and permitting uses today. It is my understanding, and I'm open to conversation from yourself, from the development officer, from anyone else on the board as well. I'm not aware that we are able to, under the law, make a new land use recommendation. We are only able to make variances to the land uses that have been presented for us, documented, and are in place. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's no appeal on land use. There's no appeal on land use. There's an appeal on subdivision. There's an appeal on development permits. You have to have regard to, but are not bound by, the subdivision development regulations. You are bound by the Municipal Government Act. You have broad powers. This is a hearing de novo. You can make whatever decision you want. It's not limited. I am suggesting to you that this again was re-advertised and reheard as a purpose, as part of this appeal hearing. I'm suggesting to you that our application is appropriate. I'm suggesting that we got first reading with a statement from the county that said you actually don't cause any undue negative effects. We agree. We're going to give you first reading. Before you go to second, here's your conditions. We met those conditions.
Mr. Chair, may I redirect the agent? We are speaking of a development permit, not a hearing. And I want to make
a hearing, sir.
Well, I understand, but you're talking about the first reading of the land use bylaw or the subdivision appeal. And I'd like to make sure that we and I am framing my questions and my understanding in order to help make a decision correctly and appropriately. We are able to utilize and make variances to laws and regulation that exist today, height of a building, easements, those sorts of things. I don't believe, and it is my understanding that we're not able to create new uses or policy for Foothills County.
You can evaluate a development permit on its merits.
Correct.
And that is what I'm asking you to do. And in order for you to evaluate that application on its merits, you need to understand how we got here. And what I'm saying is the actions taken by the county have been procedurally unfair. To redirect us back to a public hearing on an item that facilitates the development permit. I'm sunk. This election, and you think I'm going to get a fair hearing? That's why I'm here.
I thank you for
I'm
your, I
hoping to
thank you
get a
for your
fair hearing,
comments,
sir.
and Mr. Chair, I end my question. Thank you.
Further questions, board members? On my list, I have few agents and appellants of the same entity. Is one person speaking for all those people, or I'm on the list I've got, I guess I have one more that's an employee of Hyatt. And then I had two others besides Miss Bunder speaking as appellant. Can I, Miss Bunder, who else is speaking? Do you know?
Just us, you can go to those in support, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry?
Those of us who are from the appellant team have spoken, so you could proceed to support and objections if you prefer.
So you're saying that there are more from your group, I'll say?
No, I don't think so. I think we've
Okay.
said what we need to.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. So then, the next one that would be on my list here is the neighbor, Mr. Colruyt. Is he here?
On? But the light doesn't.
Oh,
come
I've
on.
got a pretty powerful voice. Yeah, I was at the last meeting. I don't know much about the rules and regulations. I was given these two complaints when I walked in the door. And all I have to do is read through and when you see an article that's full of innuendo and false truth, how can you give it any credibility? The one with Rod Coote, he highlights outdoor showroom. This is an outfit in Calgary. I don't know how much money they've spent on showrooms and staff out there. I've been to pretty much every event they've had, even if it's only for a cup of coffee. I've never seen them trying to sell a vehicle out there. He says they bring cars out to exceed the speed limit. Absolutely. That's what they do on the airstrip. They tested for decibel levels on my corner, 658th and 187th. And it was below what normal conversation is. Rod Coote does not live there. If you ask him, it was probably 15 years ago that he retired from farming, and he's built a brand new house west of Nanton where he lives. Moving farm machinery might have been a half a mile on 658th Avenue with a bale truck. The farm machinery that moves down there is, everybody's hindered by it. It goes from wall to wall with the new machinery. Give Henry a call at Cayley Colony and see what their opinion is. Cayley Colony owns land on the west, the south, and the north. Alan Top owns the kitty corner to the northwest. He doesn't live there. Rod doesn't live there. There is nobody lived actively farming at the AJ since 1997, I think. That's when my father-in-law sold all the land, with the exception of the runway, to the Hutterites. He complains about rocks in the ditch. They're on private land. I put them there because the grade on the road was not sufficient to keep people from driving up and when nobody's there, looking around, wanting to snoop and know what's going on. Yeah, I put him there for that reason. What else does he talk about? Big rocks. Oh, 5,000 RPM. Everything they've had out there has come off the street. It's legalized vehicles. Cindy complained about there was 2,000 vehicles in a day. I hardly think that. It sounds more like Chicken Little running around. The sky is falling. You know, I've complained before about cattle trucks. I'm not going to do that today. I was told it's a public road. You can't control the traffic on it. Excess noise, you know, disposable coffee cups. The biggest thing Lynn and I have noticed, and we walk the ditch from our place a mile down to the AJ for exercise. We take 2 bags, one for garbage and one for cans. The biggest thing we notice is have the Hutterites gone to McDonald's? Because then the garbage comes out on our road before they get home to the colony. You know, Cindy says they're not residing there. There hasn't been a farmer lived there since 1997. My mother-in-law sold that. I sold it for her in 2000 to Alex Balson. He didn't farm it. It was it's being accused of being a commercial property. It was a commercial airport listed in the airports of Canada. You know, it has not changed the agricultural status since 1997. Nobody complained. They made a reality show, Thrill of a Lifetime, in 1983. They made a local hot rod show out there, Midnight Oil. He's since passed away. They've made music videos out there while Alex had it. There was Corvette drag racing out there. There was hot rod racing out there. And as far as complaining about the excess speed between the 3 miles between the AJ and the highway, if it's that excessive, why don't the police go out there and make a whole bunch of money? It's not happening. I know what the traffic is there. And how can Cindy complain about the noise and traffic when arguably she lives on the second busiest highway in Alberta? You think about it, there's more traffic on the 4-lane than you know, second to none only on the QE2 between Calgary and Edmonton. What you and Hyatt does, it's not going to affect me. I'm bulletproof. I'm old enough. You know, at my age, I can see the end of the road. But when something like this comes up and, I do whatever you have to, but you sent me a letter. I'm the closest residence there. Nobody else lives within half a mile of it. We're outside all the time in the summertime. We don't find it offensive. There you go.
Thank you. I'll see if board members have any questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for indulging me.
Now go to Miss Eldridge. I see she's on Zoom. Did you have any comments? Miss Eldridge?
Hi, I was trying to get unmuted there. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I'd just like to address a couple of things there that I've heard. It's already been addressed by the general manager of Hyatt there about the interviews that I mentioned in my letter. I do have evidence. I have quite a bit of evidence in paper form. If it's needed, I can bring it all in to the board members so you can actually see it yourself. I do have the editor's contact information from these interviews. And the latest interview was on September 5th of 2024. And it's been stated multiple times about all their plans for the drag strip is mentioned multiple times in there. And I also just wanted to state that probably the reason that the second and third reading was opposed to was because after the first reading, a lot of the residents along 658 weren't aware of it. Our Cayley post office had closed. We do not get the Western Wheel anymore unless, because we now have super boxes. So we have to drive into the MD office, Alderside or Okotoks to pick up a Western Wheel. And by the time we had heard about it, it was like 2 days after the hearing had already passed. Then the activities started out here, which, as I understand, they were supposed to wait until third reading and they actually had a permit to start these events and activities. But it was going on all summer. They were holding events on weekends, which is stated in the site-specific land use bylaw. The first hearing, it said not weekends. It said only Mercedes events. Well, the general manager himself told me they had car clubs that use that. The YouTube videos show drag racing, not only with Mercedes, but various makes of vehicles and motorcycles as well. And I'm just wondering about the noise testing that they say they've done. Are they doing it on the motorcycles and the other makes of vehicles as well? And as far as vehicle testing for steering and maneuverability and handling, it's a straight track. So I don't know they're testing their steering and maneuverability on a straight runway. But these vehicles are definitely modified because I have various pictures of them, and these are not vehicles that the general public can buy off a lot. And actually, the general manager told me himself one day when he was on our property that we should come out to his place because the car club was going to be out there on October 4th, and we would be able to see vehicles that we would never see anywhere else. So if we're not going to see them anywhere else, they're certainly not on their lot. They've certainly gone over more than 12 events just this year alone, and they don't even have the proper permits in place. So I'm just worried that if they're doing this now without the proper legal permits in place, what are they going to do once they do have a permit, and the people who live around here are subjected to that all the time and have no recourse at this point. But I believe that council bylaw RCMP has been inundated with the neighbors' complaints with these events going on. They do make more noise. My neighbors drive up and down the road. A lot of them, I couldn't tell you what kind of vehicle they drive because I don't see them. I don't hear them. These vehicles, I notice them because they're making a lot more noise. They come on and off the highway here, almost like they're stunting. They go tearing off out. The horns are blowing on the highway half the time. That's how I notice them, because I'm right on the corner of 658 and Highway 2. Otherwise, if they were quietly driving up and down the road, we wouldn't even notice them. The other thing that I wanted to address Mr. Colruss's comments. I have cameras on my property and they hold 4,000 photos. And in one weekend event that they had, my camera was full in 2 days. That's 4,000 photos. Also, I didn't say that there was not farming going on the property. I said they didn't reside on that property. There has been someone residing on that property up until it was sold. The previous events that were held out there at Flying J, they were, the Nanton Car Club, once, maybe a year. They didn't bother the neighbors. They are old people with show cars, club car, like it. You didn't notice it. And as far as me living on the 4-lane, yes, when we purchased this property in 1989, we knew it was on a 4-lane highway. The traffic was not what it is now. I agree. It has gotten terrible and it is not pleasant for us along the highway side. But 658 has always been residents only. A few cattle liners going up and down there once in a while. But other than that, it hasn't been bad. And our house is closer to the 658 than it is the highway. It's 658 that is very unpleasant now. And I also just want to point out that Mr. Colruss, in the first hearing, when he approached council, stated that he was deaf and had to read lips. So that would probably be why he can't hear the race cars on the racetrack. And number two, he lives east of Flying J, so the traffic wouldn't be going up past his house anyway, so the traffic wouldn't be bothering him either. Whereas everybody else that lives west of Flying J has to put up with all the traffic that go up and down that road. I also have friends that live on the road south of us, and they can hear the noise from the racing cars. My friends there have mentioned numerous times that they can hear the cars racing over there because it travels across to their property as well. And the other thing, in conclusion, I just wanted to make a note that 4 years ago, one of our neighbors had applied for RV storage facility and was denied a permit. And the reason it was denied was stated to volume of traffic on the rural road. And it was not 5 kilometers up 658. It only would have affected 3 other landowners. And nobody had made any complaints about that. We were actually in support of it. And yet it was denied because of the volume and increase of traffic. So if they were denied an RV storage, I can't see why this should go through. It's a lot more traffic. And we live here, and we have for many years on 658. And I believe we have the right to enjoy our residence and our property and express our displeasure and concerns with the high volume of traffic and the noise and disruption. And right now for this appeal, we're all the neighbors on 658. We're fighting for our quality of life to live in our homes peacefully. And I oppose the racetrack at Flying J. Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you. Board members, questions?
Good afternoon, Ms. Eldridge. Thank you for your presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's Pat Steer here. I just never noticed yet in your letter or in what you've just said where exactly you're located from this property. Can you narrow that down for me? Are you to the west?
I am the very first property when you turn on to 658 off of Highway 2.
Okay, so therefore you're approximately 2 miles or more away from the highway, correct?
From the highway, no, I'm probably 500
Oh, I've
feet.
got it reversed. I'm sorry. You're saying therefore that you are right adjacent to the property in question here today?
No, the Highway 2, the
Yeah.
4-lane Highway 2 where you turn onto 658.
Yeah.
My property is the very first property on the south side of
Okay,
658.
so then you're over 2 miles away from this property in question.
Yes.
Okay, that's
So
what I
all the
needed to know.
traffic that is going down to the Flying J goes by my property, every single
I
vehicle.
understand. I do understand. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
No further questions. Now go, thank you, Ms. Eldridge. Mr. Chu, do you have any comments or questions? There,
Hello?
I can see. Yes, go ahead.
I think Mrs. Elbridge, she has addressed most of my concern, and I'm also the one of the neighboring properties, not directly neighboring. It will be between the highway 2 and to the airport, and I would like to say that there have been a lot of events happening during the summer, and they're all happening at the weekends, and there will be more than 5 that I could count it off, and also I moved away from the city 2 years ago to enjoy the quietness of the country life, and that is really bothering me, and also the traffics that would get coming in from the highway 2, so that short ramp that turn off with a lot of cars, and there will eventually be cars will have to be backed up onto the highway on the left lane, and this is not very safe to do it with a lot of cars coming in to the event. And also, the third point I want to address is, well, turning into the airport is a commercial use, and if it's turned into another commercial use, which is a racetrack, well, it's a racetrack because particularly they have it on their YouTube channel. You can go on to the YouTube and put on Mercedes-Benz downtown Calgary, and you'll see all the films. It's all say drag race, and like what's the future? What's the direction that's going to head in? Like, and the fourth point will be what's the enforcement if there's any violation? What's the consequence if they exceed the numbers of events as stated? Would the council have some special amendment to the bylaw to address that? Yeah, that's all my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? At this point, is there anyone um, that wishes to speak that hasn't spoken yet? Your turn, yeah?
Hello, everyone. My name is Perry Itzkevich. My brother, Steven Itzkevich. I'm one of the co-owners of the Hyatt Group and Mercedes-Benz Downtown Calgary. We have been using the property to make videos. It's all visible to everybody. We've been hiding nothing. It's been full disclosure of everything we've done. We're not hiding from the public. We're part of the public. Mazen has gone out of his way to engage and welcome the neighbors. He's personally spent time with his family there for picnics and other things. Like, we really believe we're good neighbors and we're good members of the public. Our reputation for the past 40 years has been just that. We're not trying to hide. We were asked to do sound, oops, that's me. Nope, sorry, medication. We were asked to do certain testing, which we complied with. We've been asking to go through the process of following the rules, which we've done. I've been out there a dozen times. I could tell you everything you've heard from our representation and from Mazen is accurate. We've only made the property better. We have not been harmful to anybody along the way. And you're welcome to come out and see it's not worse, it's better. Yeah, we've had some cars out there racing against Mercedes and other brands. And when they say, you know, you'll see a car you won't normally see on the street. Well, yeah, because these are $300,000 cars. These are $500,000 cars. These are cars that you could buy them in a dealership. You can order them in from a dealership. Yeah, you don't see them on the street every day because they're specialty original equipment vehicles. They're not modified. They're not drag race cars. They're not hot rods unless they were made like that from the factory. We don't do modifications. We sell OEM original equipment. And if we bring out a car to compete against our Mercedes, an SL against a Porsche, against an Audi, against a Ferrari, these are all cars that, yeah, people don't see them regularly because they're a lot of money and they're specialty and they're collector items. So when we say we're making something special, and you've seen some of our videos, we've gotten rave reviews from other people in the industry and other people that write for Canadian Automotive News and for all the other institutions, whether online or written, because we're creating content. We're creating amazing content where Mazen will say, you know what, I've had a couple of people say, could we get this BMW? Nobody has one. There's 3 in Canada. We found one of the 3. We brought it out there. We put it up against our Mercedes. We're getting huge participation from the public promoting this area in a positive way. This area has been supportive in so many ways. You go across the street to the cafe and you can see Hollywood North. Like, we're not taking away from any of that. If anything, we're enhancing it by creating content that would be worthy of your Hollywood North, which is a block down the road here on the right-hand side. So we're not going and doing anything in adverse to what we're trying to create as a community here or for us as a content. We just want to be relevant, stand out, and provide content and entertainment within the parameters of what you've given us. And our representation has followed all the rules. We've abided by all the rules. If we turned it back into an airport, we've got 3 flight schools that want to do jump out of the plane stuff. You know, we've got Springbank wants to use it. High River wants to use it. I've got people calling me from on their way to Nanton that want to use it as an Airbnb. If we didn't keep it to what we're doing, I guarantee you with today's environment, the amount of traffic with 3 flight schools and other, it's just, there would be more noise and more traffic and more disruption than what we're creating. And like this winter comes, we don't even go out there except we're going out there maybe to have coffee. So, you know, yeah, there's 12 incidents and a couple for staff, but it doesn't get used a lot. I've got a camera on my phone. When somebody goes there, I get notified by Ring, hey, there's somebody in the house. I look, oh, Chris went out there. It's quail hunting. He's made friends with the neighbors, and he's going out with permission from the neighbors to do that. Like, I've got 3, 4 guys that are really, Mazin being one of them, who are part of the community. And my fixed op guy, Chris, he loves it. He's from the country. Mazin grew up in the country. So, you know, I've got guys that are country boys living in the city, and they just love going out there and hanging around. That, and not racing cars, by the way, or not driving cars, just enjoying the environment. You sit down there in the living room and you look through that front window on a clear day and you're looking at the mountains. It's gorgeous out there. So we're appreciating what you have every day because we don't have it every day in Calgary. So I just want to share with you that we have a passion for what we do every day, and we have a respect for what you do every day. And we don't feel we've broken any rules. And if we have, we'll correct that right away. But we've been acting at a level of honor and respect for the property and for the area and for the neighbors. And, you know, we had a barbecue, and I met 7 neighbors. None of them had a problem. The problem when we talk to them is they don't want to upset the 2 that wrote these letters that have accusations that are not even true. And I don't blame them. If I got a guy 3 houses over and I knew they were wrong, but I got to live with them. And I got to see them when I get my mail. And I got to see them when I go into town for a burger. I don't want to piss off my neighbor. So you have the silent majority who are very happy, and 2 people, one who has concerns and one who just is not happy. And I'm sorry for the lady who is now on Highway 2 and the traffic is way more than it used to be. Well, I'm sure some of that traffic that is way more than it used to be on Highway number 2, some of that's going down 168. It's not all going down Highway 2. I was in Cayley talking to a guy out there. They got more traffic there too. So, you know, Calgary is getting more people. Alberta is getting more people. And with more people comes more traffic. But as you heard, the speeding is not related to us or anybody we were involved with or anybody we had there. If anybody breaks a rule, they're gone. We'll step up first because that's how we run our business. We're responsible. And all I could say is, please look at the facts, work at the facts. And when you look at the facts, we are a good neighbor. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. Robson?
Thank you. Through the chair. I apologize, sir. I didn't catch your last name.
Perry Itzkovich. I'm Stephen's brother and partner.
Oh, okay. So on title, as owners of Hyatt Auto Sales, are you one of those?
Yes, I am.
First, let me comment you on your presentation. I understand and hear and clearly am a fan of the passion you have for motorsports and automobiles, clearly. The issue that we're faced with today is a development permit for an as yet identified use of the land that you've purchased. That is this board's hearing today. Our decision is going to rest solely and completely and only on what we're permitted and allowed to do. Your comments absolutely should be, in my recommendation or thoughts, would be better heard with council to make the change to the land use designation or what that land can or should or could be used for. We are only here at the moment to recognize the application in front of us, which is an appeal to an automatic refusal for a non-listed use of that property. And that's our hearing for today. This has been a very complicated and frustrating process for you, without a doubt. And I can certainly hear that and see that in your presentation. I think rather than a question, Mr. Chair, that was more of a comment. I thank you very much for your comments today.
And I thank you for your time today. I think what it is after that first reading, and there was no real objection to it, and we weren't trying to hide anything, you know, everything's been totally full disclosure. And after the first one, there were no problems. So how did we get so off track? And how did this get derailed in such a way that it fell off a cliff? It shouldn't have. I've been involved in many proceedings over the last 40 years, mostly in Calgary, on events like this, through appeal boards and everything else. And I could honestly say after that first reading, when it was clear from the comments that there was no objection and that we were living within the guidelines and that the noise was not an issue and that the traffic wasn't an issue. So I guess you're right, I'm passionate, I care, which is good, but better to have somebody who owns a property that you're responsible for that cares. My mouth is dry. But I thank you for your explanation. But I just think the residents there now are much better off than if it was a full-time, busier airport. You'd have traffic every day, every week, 7 days a week at odd hours. That's not what we do. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, is there anyone that has questions of anyone else that's involved in the hearing through the chair? Being none, we'll now go to closing comments. First, I'll ask the municipal rep if they have any closing comments. Ms. Cotler?
Ms. Cutler or myself? I'm sorry. Sorry. I heard him say.
Thank you. In closing, the matter before the board today is only regarding the automatic refusal of the development permit, and the Development Authority respectfully requests that the board uphold the automatic refusal as per Section 3D2 of the Municipal Government Act. The board does not have the authority to approve this use as it is not a listed, permitted, or discretionary use in the agricultural district of the land use bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you allow questions at some point?
Only clarification. We're down to that at the end. We'll do it after. So, Ms. Bender, I think it's your turn now.
Thank you. So I went into my SDAB cheat sheet and I looked at the legal interpretation and application of 687 3D. And I can read this into the record. I'm allowed to do that. The section of the MGA allows the SDAB to issue a development permit even if the proposed development violates the current land use bylaw, provided two conditions are met. The proposed development would not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of land of neighboring parcels of land. And the proposed development conforms with the use prescribed for that land or building in the land use bylaw. In essence, this provision allows for flexibility in the application of specific development standards, as long as the proposed use of the land is appropriate for the area and the variance does not negatively impact the adjacent properties or the overall neighborhood character. The burden is on the SDAB to determine if these criteria are met when an appeal is filed. The purpose of my presentation today was to impose upon or prove to the board with the evidence package and the materials provided that we do not cause undue negative impact and negatively interfere with the use, value, or enjoyment of the neighborhood. And that was actually written by the county in 2 different staff reports. We have no development permit presently. And if you're going to use the argument that we can't give you one, then I can continue this use without one, quite frankly. It's the same as if we were filming. There's no development permit requirement for it, so we're going to go film. We were asked to bring this forward so that it could be permitted. There isn't any requirement for permitting presently. And then for some reason, we were not issued the permit. It was automatically refused because the land use didn't proceed, the site-specific amendment. The rezoning is still in front of them. The rezoning didn't proceed because they wanted the site-specific amendment to go first. It was not a condition of the rezoning. I consider this a hearing de novo, and in my opinion, I am concerned about the first parcel out. And as you saw, the Alberta Transportation Economic Corridors waived any responsibility for this area. Therefore, I have this board to come back to, and I might be back with the subdivision, who knows, but a year and a half and they haven't touched it. I'm concerned for the community if this permit isn't issued, because we can operate without one. There isn't a requirement in the land use bylaw for us to get one. We're saying, hey, let's do this. Let's put some belts and braces around the application. Let's talk about how this intensity of use is reduced significantly from what it was before. There was airplanes flying in and out of that place with no permit. This could be the same for the vehicles. So, we're trying to do the right thing here. We're trying to get a permit that sets some expectations for the operator and the community. And I'm in absolute disbelief that we're here. So I am asking the board to issue the permit to allow for the use because it conforms with the land use bylaw. It's certainly much less intense than the previous use in terms of intensity of use and effect on neighboring parcels. I don't necessarily believe that Miss Eldridge is an affected party under the Act, but I'm not going to get into that argument. It would just complicate things more. RV storage is universally refused across the municipality, with the exception of it being located in the corridor because that's where they want it. So to make a comparison of this to that is completely not an apples to apples comparison in any way. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chair. I think we're trying to do the right thing. We're asking the board to do the right thing here by putting some operational requirements on this use. It is the right thing to do, and we're in a position where we can't. So I'm going to ask for your support, and Mr. Mazen would like to say something.
First of all, I want to thank you guys all for taking the time to do it today. I think this probably ended up being maybe longer than we had expected it to be, but I felt like there was a lot of valuable statements. I want to address specifically Cindy's comments, Miss Eldridge's comments when she spoke earlier. The event that I had invited Cindy to, which was an event that was put on for the neighbors there, was on October 4th. And we had actually put that event on specifically for the neighbors, and that was based on a recommendation from the first hearing from Mr. Seward. And that's why we had made that happen. The supercars that were going to be there, we had actually went as far as inviting a supercar club that helps us raise money for charities to come to that event that day, so that a lot of the community members could see these exotic cars that were some of them are one-offs, two-offs, very, very rare, low production, 350 in the world or whatnot. And we wanted to give them that excitement. Even though the weather wasn't the best that day, they did show up, which was great. We went one step further and even to kind of get them involved in what was going on with the whole thing that was the Netflix and My Life with the Walter Boys. We had one of the stars from My Life with the Walter Boys come there, and they were signing autographs for them as well. We wanted to show the community just how much we appreciate them and how much we respect them. And we didn't do that earlier, and I explained this to Cindy when I went there in person to invite her myself, because we quite honestly felt that people in the country, like Winston had mentioned, didn't want to be bothered. we didn't want to go knocking on doors when we showed up there. We didn't want to make a ruckus. We wanted to be as quiet as possible, go in and out, not make any trouble, which is what we've done since day one. And we didn't do it before. We didn't engage any of the neighbors because we just didn't want to interrupt their day. And we felt that we were imposing on them by doing so. When it was recommended to us by Mr. Seward that, you know, that we have this event, we were excited to do it because we got a chance to actually meet a lot of the neighbors as well, which was fantastic. There was, we were concerned about some of the traffic that was on 658 to what Mr. Zhu had mentioned, that there was some people that were driving quickly or whatnot, which is why we took it upon ourselves. And I actually reached out to the RCP myself, as I mentioned earlier. I was actually a victim of that individual that was going up and down that road on 658th Avenue. I had to pull over into the ditch driving back a vehicle one day, and he came by me so fast that he blew out my windshield by the rocks he was kicking up. And I tried to see what his plate was, and he went by way too fast. And at that point, I was asking a lot of the neighbors about who this person might be. Miss Eldridge did mention to me that she knew who that individual was, but didn't want to share with me who that individual was in particular. And, you know, I understand not wanting to protect them, and I know that's part of the community, so we didn't press beyond that. But we're really concerned about people's safety, and we want to make sure that we're a part of that. And that's why we have committed that if anybody does do anything or comes to any of the events, we will turn them in ourselves 110%. And we feel that this passion project of how we ended up there in the first place that Perry was speaking about, that we are there to add value to the community. And I've shared that with the neighbors on several occasions. We're there to add value, not take anything away. And we appreciate everybody's time and understanding with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does anyone else, pardon me, anyone else have closing comments? And I'll go.
This is Cindy Eldridge again. I'd just like to respond to a couple of the comments that were made towards myself. The comments from Hyatt Auto, people have all been about me being a liar, which I don't appreciate. If any of the board members would like the proof I have, I do have cameras. I have photographs. I have dates and times of the events in which the cars and vehicles are going up here. And I have the articles in which these statements were made. So I haven't made these things up. I do have proof. And as far as I've lived here for over 35 years, and it seems to me that Hyatt Auto doesn't really care that it affects the residents' lives here. We live here because we don't want the city life. A racetrack belongs in the city, not in a rural area where people aren't interested in fancy race cars out here. Maybe if you had some fancy horses or cattle or tractors, they might be more interested, but race cars don't impress us, especially when they're noisy and speeding up and down the road. As far as saying that the neighbors don't want to piss me and Rod and Winston off, we speak to all the neighbors. Most of them are in agreement with us, and a lot of them had other commitments they had to do today at 1 o'clock as on a Thursday as a work day. And a lot of people can't take the time off to do this. And it was a very short notice for us to get letters in and registered for this. It is affecting the use value and enjoyment of our neighborhood. And you're saying you care about our community, but you're interested in bringing more people, more volumes of traffic out here. That's not what we are interested in. We don't want volumes of traffic and more people in this area. Like Winston said, we live out here to get away from this. And yes, the increase in volume and traffic on 658 was noticeable, and that's why it was we were contacted the 2 days after your hearing. And I believe the reason you didn't contact the neighbors previous to that was because you didn't want to give us a heads up so that we could go in there. And once you got started on that and all the traffic and everything, that's when the neighbors started to complain, call bylaw, and the council members, because it was noticeable at that time that you were doing this. But it sounds to me like you're going to go ahead anyway. You don't care what the community thinks here or the other residents. You're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. So that's not caring about your community. And as far as the airport, it didn't bother any of us. It was here for years. They flew in and out sporadically. It wasn't an ongoing, continuous thing. There was the odd vehicles going up and down to the airport, but nobody complained about it, or council would have had a bylaw out there or done something about it years ago. So as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I just don't appreciate being called a liar at all. So that's the end of what I have to say.
Thank you. Now is the opportunity for the board members to get any points clarified that they want. Mr. Robson?
Thank you. Through the chair to the appellant's agent, Ms. Buhner. Can you, I didn't hear you at the beginning. You spoke rather quickly. What were you referring to on your quote unquote cheat sheet? What section or?
Sorry, I was looking at my materials as a board member. And we have summaries in our packet, in our materials, and the legal meaning and application summary is what I read you. Also,
Is that a statute? Is it a regulation?
no,
Is it
it's
an
an
MJ?
interpretation from the board's lawyer. And you have a lawyer that you can run this by. And I would suggest you should do that. I'm also going to suggest that Ms. Eldridge brought no evidence to this quasi judicial proceeding. It is
Mr. Chair,
it's bound by rules of
I
evidence.
think that new evidence is being presented when we're asking a point of clarification.
Well, she was able to speak after I made a close, so I can rebut her, can I not?
Through the chair to Ms. Buhner, I have yet to have my question answered in its entirety. So if you wouldn't mind, I would appreciate that.
I thought I answered your question, sir.
For clarification, when we're looking at, where are we here? Hearing and decision 687-1, subsection D, subsection 2 is the, for clarification and confirmation with you. I want to ensure that I understand clearly that the SDAB is only mandated to make any decision as long as the proposed development conforms with the use prescribed for that land or building in the land use bylaw. So are we in agreement that this land use is not currently in the land use bylaw of Foothills County?
I'm going to read this. When you say prescribed development conforms with the use prescribed for that land or building, that is the purpose statement of the district. It is not a standard.
You're forgetting one important part, is that of the current land use bylaw.
No, it doesn't. And that's my point.
Okay.
You can.
So Ms. Buhner, we're getting somewhere if you would indulge me. So the development permit, as applied for and automatically refused, its reasoning was that it was not an intended use or a prescribed use under the existing land use bylaw.
Correct.
And you're asking this board through this hearing to amend that or make a change to the land use bylaw. Is that correct?
This particular development permit, yes, for this site.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Steer?
Yes, thank you. And through the chair to the development officer, if I could, Ms. Kohler. In our package, normally speaking, for development appeals and so on and so forth that have been dealt with by your department, there's normally, in the event that a council decision comes forward that the board may support and allow that development, that suggested conditions are often included in our package. I haven't seen any in this instance. I know that through the convoluted process that these applicants have had to endure, that they met the conditions that were set by council, which there was only 3. Are you missing having suggested conditions for us in case that is an opportunity that we want to consider? Or was that omitted somehow?
Thank you. Common practice is to draft recommended conditions for the appeal board agenda package. This was difficult to create as there were missing pieces of information within the application documents that would have been fulfilled through the course of the development permit process. Staff has endeavored to compile the conditions. I do have them here. I have copies for everybody. Staff would respectfully request that if the board moved to approve the applications, that the board set pre-release conditions that require the applicant to provide detailed site plans and information with respect to vehicle testing occurrences and the 2 special event days. The board may also wish to consider setting maximum numbers of vehicles and participants that are permitted to attend on vehicle testing days. I've printed copies of staff suggested conditions, and please note that the conditions listed are not exhaustive and were to the best of our abilities at this time.
Further clarification, Mr. Chair? The applicant and their agent had put together a comprehensive set of lists of events and numbers and hours and all of that kind of thing. Is that document you're intending to pass out relevant to what they had in the first approval that they'd got?
This would just go further. In a special event permit. We would generally ask for a bit more information, such as the water and washrooms that are being brought in. Where would they be put? Are there structures being on there? Would these tents, or we just would have asked a few more questions should this development permit continue down its normal path.
Okay, and just one follow-up. Any reference to insurance policies, liabilities, that kind of stuff? So far, I gather not.
Thus far, we haven't discussed them, and they would be a part of the regular conditions set out for a special event permit.
Okay, thank you.
Well, at this point, we haven't seen them either, so that's, you turn your mic on.
Normal procedures, I would have the opportunity to review these permit conditions and appeal them if I don't like them. And that's not what's happened here.
May I request that we take a break?
We'll take a brief recess. Thank you. After the brief recess, where we are in the hearing is that the closing comments are ended, and so no further evidence will be entered in. And at this point, I will adjourn the hearing. The decision will come out in writing in about 15 days. Thank you all for your information and your presentations. Thanks.